You ready to unravel a biblical mystery? Today, we're diving into a fascinating topic: the Nephilim's survival after the Great Flood. New evidence has emerged, shedding light on their existence after the floodwaters receded. So let's dive into this video and explore how Nephilim survived the flood. Nephilim in the book of Enoch and watchers in the ancient Enochian legend. The Nephilim were monstrous beings born to the watchers. Fallen angels who sinned by cohabiting with human women during those times. It is unclear whether these Nephilim were born as giant babies or fully grown, but they were wicked beings that caused great destruction on earth. God, displeased by the actions of the watchers and the Nephilim, sent his archangels to restore balance and deal with the chaos that had engulfed the world. Archangel Michael confronted Sumiaza, the leader of the watchers who had led his angels into sin. Angel Raphael apprehended Azazel, a watcher who had shared heavenly secrets with humanity and taught them warfare. Archangel Uriel warned Noah of the impending flood and instructed him to build an ark to save his family and a remnant of all living beings. Archangel Gabriel was tasked with thinning the horde of the Nephilim, causing them to destroy each other in battle. Archangel Gabriel's efforts, combined with the eventual flood, led to the demise of the physical Nephilim giants. However, their spirits survived the flood and became evil spirits dwelling on the earth. God permitted their existence in this spiritual form to punish humanity for its involvement in the production of the Nephilim and the events that transpired. The Book of Giants, the events in the Book of Enoch align with the apocryphal Jewish Book of Giants, which focuses on the perspective of the Nephilim. The giant Mahweh and his fellow giants experienced disturbing nightmares, leading them to seek Enoch's interpretation. Enoch reveals that the dreams are ominous signs of impending punishment for their wicked deeds. He offers a glimmer of hope, suggesting that they might find forgiveness if they change their ways and renounce evil. Despite Enoch's words, none of the Nephilim seemed to repent, and God's wrath was swift. He sent a flood to wipe out the Nephilim, and angels hunted down any survivors. The Enochian version of the Book of Giants even mentions the involvement of the biblical monster Leviathan in eliminating those who managed to escape the flood. While some details are unclear due to fragmented texts, it is evident that God's judgment led to the destruction of the giants, either through the flood or the actions of his angels. In the Bible mentions the Nephilim, a mysterious group in the book of Genesis. While it does not detail their origin, we find references to them as the offspring of the sons of God and mortal women. The biblical flood is said to have wiped out these creatures and everything else, leaving only Noah and his companions alive. However, later in the book of Numbers, we encounter a perplexing situation where the Nephilim seem to reappear in Canaan. In Genesis 6, for the Nephilim are described as the heroes of old men of renown. The Bible indicates they existed when the sons of God had children with human daughters. Some interpret these sons of God as angels, suggesting a connection between angels and the Nephilim, the flood and the disappearance of the Nephilim. The biblical flood story in Genesis suggests that all living beings, including the Nephilim, were destroyed except for Noah and those aboard the ark. This led to the belief that the Nephilim ceased to exist after the flood. In the book of Numbers, scouts sent by Moses to explore Canaan encountered the Nephilim once again. They report to Moses that the people in Canaan are strong and that they saw the Nephilim there. This raises the question of how the Nephilim could exist if they were supposed to have been wiped. Theories on the reappearance of the Nephilim theory. One says that there's a new generation of fallen angels. One plausible explanation for the reappearance of the Nephilim is the possibility that a new generation of fallen angels followed the footsteps of the original watchers. According to Enochian legend, the watchers were cast down into an underground prison beneath the desert for their rebellion against God and their transgressions on earth. The events in the Book of Numbers take place long after the time of the original Watchers, indicating that new angels may have chosen to defy divine prohibitions and descend to earth to procreate with mortal women, giving rise to a fresh breed of Nephilim. Theory 2 is about the cursed descendants of Canaan. Another theory posits that the Nephilim may have been descendants of Canaan, the cursed son of Noah. As the story goes, when Canaan was cursed by his father, his descendants also became cursed. It is suggested that the sons of Shem and Japheth, who were Canaan's brothers, might have intermingled with the daughters of Canaan, which would have been seen as a violation in God's eyes. These unholy unions could have led to the birth of a new Nephilim. However, this theory remains speculative, lacking substantial evidence. Finally, Theory 3 states the misinterpretation or fabrication. A rather different perspective proposes that the scouts in the Book of Numbers might have mistaken tall men from Canaan for Nephilim, or fabricated the entire story out of fear. Moses sent these scouts to explore Canaan and report back on its inhabitants and conditions. Upon their return, they spread a bad report, claiming they saw Nephilim among the Canaanites, thus discouraging an attack. However, it is possible that their fear of the fortified cities, strong men, and difficult terrain led them to exaggerate or misconstrue their observation. How did the Nephilim survive? It was speculated that the flood was a local flood. One theory posits that the flood described in Genesis was local rather than universal. According to this view, only a specific geographical region experienced the flood, allowing some Nephilim to survive in other areas unaffected by the deluge. Proponents of this theory argue that the text does not explicitly state the flood was global, and that the extensive use of superlative language in Genesis 6, the eighth of may be metaphorical, rather than literal. Counter-arguments to this theory include the strong universal language used in the biblical text, implying that the flood encompassed the entire earth. Additionally, the presence of animals on Noah's Ark, including land animals and birds, suggests a universal flood, as these creatures could have naturally sought higher ground in a local flood scenario. Also, it is said that Nephilim genetics passed down through Noah's sons' wives. Another viewpoint gaining popularity suggests that Nephilim genetics were preserved through one of Noah's sons' wives. However, this interpretation is based on inference and lacks explicit support from the biblical text. Arguments favoring this view often involve eisegesis, reading the text rather than concluding it. Next, Nephilim survived through some extraordinary means. Some scholars reject the notion of the Nephilim surviving the flood altogether, emphasizing that the flood lasted for about a year, and any breathing creatures or persons not on the ark would not have survived. Another theory proposes that the Nephilim survived the flood through extraordinary means. Some suggest that they were skilled swimmers or clung to the outside of Noah's Ark. However, this theory is challenged by the biblical account, which clearly states that all flesh perished during the flood except for those inside the ark. Next, it says Nephilim went underground. An intriguing hypothesis suggests that the Nephilim found refuge underground during the flood and resurfaced once the waters receded. However, this theory lacks textual support and remains speculative, with no concrete evidence to validate it. While it cannot be categorically disproven, it also cannot be definitively supported. Finally, it is speculated that there was a second incursion of angelic beings. A compelling and widely debated theory suggests that a second group of angelic beings, separate from the original Watchers, came down to mate with human women after the flood. This view draws from 2 Peter 2, 4 and Jude 6 passages, which speak of angels who sinned and received punishment. According to this theory, these fallen angels produced more Nephilim offspring, such as the Enochian, Zamzummim, and Rephaim, who became adversaries encountered by Moses and Joshua on their journey to the Promised Land. While critics argue that this theory is an argument from silence and inference, proponents emphasize the connection between the biblical descriptions of the Nephilim's presence and the presence of angelic beings in other scriptural passages. The main critique against this theory is that the later books of the Pentateuch and Joshua do not explicitly mention a second incursion. It is argued that this proposal relies on an argument from silence or inference rather than direct. So, what do you think about the survival of Nephilims during Noah's flood? Comment below and subscribe for more.